a workplace misconduct scandal decimated the Vergne Police Department in Tennessee after an internal investigation was launched in December of 2022. According to a 20-page investigative report on the matter, Officer Megan Hall was accused of having repeated intimate relations with several of her colleagues, including a sergeant. The employees named in the report were Sergeant Lewis Powell, Officer Patrick Maliocco, Officer Larry Holliday, Detective Seneca Shields, and Officer Juan Lugo Perez, all of whom admitted to having relationships with Hall. Some of the officers involved in the scandal reportedly had previous policy violations on their records, including for speeding and smoking in patrol vehicles, using department computers for personal matters, and even an unrelated misconduct investigation. Hall, who joined the force back in 2020, had been reprimanded numerous times prior to the latest scandal, and on multiple occasions had gotten into trouble for crashing her patrol car. The internal investigation uncovered that the accused officers had had intimate encounters while on duty and on city property. The report also detailed a raunchy hot tub party, as well as the alleged exchange of explicit photographs between the officers involved. Hall, who was married at the time, was terminated from her position in the wake of the report's publication. 4 additional officers were fired while 3 others were suspended. Number 6. Luis Toledo. In October of 2013, Florida man Luis Toledo, a former gang leader, discovered text conversations between his wife, Yessenia Suarez, and her married co-worker, which indicated that they were involved in a romantic affair. Enraged by his discovery, Toledo ended up installing software on Suarez's phone to keep tabs on her text conversations. He even confronted her and her lover at their place of work on October the 22nd. The following day, Suarez's mother reported her and her 2 children missing from their home at 317 Covent Gardens Place in Deltona. It would later emerge that earlier that morning, Toledo had woken up his neighbor, Tyshawn Jackson, and enlisted his help in dumping his wife's car and other valuables at a Publix supermarket in Lake Erie. Jackson contacted the police about Toledo's strange request. When officers were dispatched to the Covent Gardens Place house to investigate, Toledo locked himself in a bathroom and shattered a mirror to cut himself. Law enforcement used a battering ram to break down the door, at which point the man was taken into custody. He later admitted to murdering his wife and her children in retaliation for her extramarital relationship. In October of 2017, Toledo was found guilty of 3 counts of murder, 2 in the first degree and 1 in the second. The following January, he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Number 5. Gregory Allen Ringle. In the early hours of March the 29th of 2022, Michigan man Gregory Allen Ringle called the police to his home in the 4000 block of Palms Road in Casco Township. The 57-year-old reported that an armed intruder had broken into the house via the garage. Ringle's wife was awakened by a noise in the kitchen, but when she went to investigate, she was met by a shotgun blast. She shut the door, successfully keeping the assailant at bay. It was at that point that Ringle, who was purportedly asleep in another room, emerged with a handgun and shot in the intruder's direction. The individual escaped and Ringle immediately dialed 911. As the police began investigating the incident, they began to detect inconsistencies in the man's testimony. When detectives learned that Ringle's wife had been in the midst of an affair with a co-worker at the time, they grew suspicious that perhaps the home invasion had been a complete fabrication. Ringle later admitted as much, telling investigators he'd actually been the one to shoot at his wife with the shotgun because he was incensed over her infidelity. He subsequently fired the handgun to legitimize his cover story. Ringle was arrested on charges of assault with intent to murder, firearm discharge in a building, false report of a felony, and 2 felony firearm violations. He was held at the St. Clair County Intervention and Detention Center on a $750,000 bond. Number 4. Brittany and Armando Barron. When New Hampshire man Armando Barron learned of his wife's infidelity, he devised a sinister plot to punish both her and her lover, a co-worker named Jonathan Amaro. In September of 2020, Armando beat his wife Brittany and strangled her until she passed out, leaving her with a pair of black eyes. He then used his wife's phone to lure 25-year-old Amaral to a park just north of the Massachusetts state line. Armando ambushed the victim, then led him into the back of his car at gunpoint. It was there that the jilted man allegedly forced his wife to slit Amaral's wrists before Armando fatally shot him 3 times, twice in the chest and once in the head. The couple subsequently drove roughly 200 miles north to a remote campsite where Armando forced Brittany to decapitate her dead lover with a saw so that he couldn't be identified. The woman complied with her husband's instructions, then wrapped Amaral's head in tarp and buried it in a grave. Fish and game officers came across Brittany alone at a campsite 2 days later. They subsequently found the aftermath of the gruesome killing, and the Barons were taken into custody. Brittany ultimately pleaded guilty to 3 counts of falsifying evidence, for which she was given a prison term of 3.5 to 7 years. Her husband, meanwhile, was convicted of first-degree murder, among other charges, and was sentenced to life without parole plus 45 years. Number 3. Lee Rodarte Jr. 21-year-old Savannah Page Gold was reported missing to the authorities on August 2nd of 2017. Her car and purse had been found in the parking lot of the Bonefish Grill on San Jose Boulevard in Jacksonville, Florida, where she worked as a waitress. Gold's family received text messages indicating she'd run away with a great guy she'd met, but never heard from her again, despite repeated attempts to contact her. Police reviewed surveillance footage from the Bonefish Grill on the night Gold disappeared, whereupon they discovered that she'd been in a physical altercation with the restaurant's manager, Lee Rodarte Jr., inside his car. The vehicle was shown shaking as the door kept opening and closing until everything stopped. Rodarte emerged, walked over to Gold's car, and took something from inside the driver's side door. He then punctured her front left tire, got back into his own vehicle, and drove away. At no point did Gold step out of Rodarte's car following their struggle. The video of the altercation marked the final time the young woman had been seen alive. Detectives subsequently noted major discrepancies in Rodarte's initial testimony, in which he'd reportedly claimed not to have seen Gold prior to her disappearance. The man was arrested in connection to an unrelated warrant for driving with a suspended driver's license. However, while he was in police custody, he allegedly incriminated himself in Gold's killing, as well as the disposal of her body. Rodarte subsequently led police to the lake in the woods at the dead end of Club Duclay Drive, where Gold's remains were recovered. During the ensuing legal proceedings, Rodarte claimed self-defense, asserting that Gold, his on-again, off-again girlfriend, had initiated the fatal confrontation in his car. His claims were rejected, however, and he ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. In exchange for his tampering with evidence and abuse of a dead body charges getting dismissed. As part of the plea bargain, Rodarte was sentenced to 40 years behind bars for the crime. Today's topic was requested by It's Amazing How I Am, Louise, and Svetlana Tulsky. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Gerardot. On April the 23rd of 2018, estranged couple Mark and Gerardot scheduled to meet for dinner to discuss their pending divorce. At the last minute, however, Jenner cancelled via text and then sent Mark a series of concerning messages, including one in which she said, "I hope you never find happiness," and another where she simply wrote, "Bye, Mark." In an interview with ABC's 2020, Mark revealed that he subsequently drove to his lover, Meredith Chapman's house, fearing his estranged wife had gone to confront her. When he arrived, he came upon the lifeless bodies of both Jenner and Meredith. There was also a 15-page letter in which Jenner had detailed her plans to murder Mark's mistress, as well as her backup plan to kill Mark himself if he walked in first. The affair that precipitated the deadly incident began in late 2017, when Mark was hired for a job in the marketing department at the University of Delaware, where Meredith was also working at the time. The Gerardots' marriage had already fallen on hard times, and the physical distance brought on by Mark traveling to interview for his new position only intensified their issues. Meredith was likewise stuck in an unhappy marriage at the time, so she and her new marketing hire immediately made a connection. She eventually separated from her husband and moved to Philadelphia, where she became an assistant vice president at Villanova University. She and Mark kept in touch, and Jr. subsequently became obsessed with her husband's extramarital activities. She placed a tracking device on his car and even planted audio recorders on his clothes to listen in on his secret conversations with Meredith. In the end, investigators used these various pieces of evidence, as well as text messages and emails written by Jr. before her death, to conclude that revenge had been the woman's primary motive for the killing. Number 1. Ross McCullum. A workplace romance ended in tragedy for 23-year-old Megan Newborough, who was brutally murdered by her boyfriend during an encounter at his parents' Leicestershire home on August the 6th of 2021. Newborough had reportedly worked as an HR representative at the place where Ross McCullum worked as a lab technician. The pair sparked up a relationship that lasted for a few weeks, but things abruptly turned sour on the night of the 6th. The young woman arrived at the residence shortly after 8 p.m., as was later detailed in court. Newborough was allegedly preparing to perform an intimate act on the man when he went into a blind rage. McCullum fatally strangled her before using a carving knife to slash her throat. He left the house at around 9 p.m., at which point he drove Newborough's body to a remote country road and threw it over a stone wall in Woodhouse Eaves. In the aftermath of the murder, McCullum went back home where he reportedly watched explicit online videos, a habit he later admitted to practicing at least an hour each day. The man subsequently took painstaking steps to cover his tracks, including by sending voicemails and text messages to Newborough only hours after the killing, in which he professed his love for her and expressed concern for her well-being. During conversations with the police, McCullum was similarly deceitful, claiming his girlfriend had left home for a McDonald's milkshake and never returned. Eventually, however, he confessed to the murder and notified law enforcement of where he'd hidden the body. When Newborough's remains were examined, investigators found injuries from her shin to the crown of her head. Some of the marks seemed to suggest that a sustained, long, merciless struggle had unfolded in the moments before she succumbed to McCullum's attack. In court, the latter claimed that the victim had inadvertently triggered his latent PTSD stemming from childhood abuse, which had caused him to lash out in violence. He admitted manslaughter but was ultimately convicted of the more serious charge of murder, for which he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have an unrequited workplace crush or have your ex become your boss? Let us know in the comments section below.